Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Debrief on ABC News Live. I'm Kimberly Brooks. Thanks so much for joining us. Alabama just approved the country's most extreme and controversial abortion law. And we have an ABC News exclusive. We're sitting down with Montana Governor Steve Bullock ahead of his presidential launch. And I caught up with the dedicated fans of BTS. You're going to want to see this because they gave an epic performance on Good Morning America this morning. But first, here are your headlines.
The Senate Intelligence Committee has struck a deal with Donald Trump Jr. to appear for a closed-door interview next month as part of its Russia investigation.
President Trump not happy when the Republican-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee wanted to question his son again about what he told them versus what the Mueller report said.
A memorial service is set for today for Kendrick Castillo, the 18-year-old killed at a Colorado school where he helped tackle one of two gunmen. Several other students were hurt in the attack earlier this month.
The new study looked at Philadelphia's soda tax, which charged an extra $1.50 on each ounce of sweetened drinks. The study found the new tax reduced sales by 38%.
America's birth rate is falling. New numbers out today show that the number of babies born last year fell to a 32-year low.
Disney CEO Bob Iger confirming that the next upcoming Star Wars film set for 2022 will be from Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and Dan Weiss. The pair have signed up for a trilogy of films.
All right, we begin in Alabama. The state Senate has just approved one of the most controversial abortion laws in the country. So I want to go to Abby Crane. She's a reporter from AL.com with more. Abby, I just want you to tell us what makes this the most restrictive ban yet.
So just first off, it's actually not law yet. The governor, Kay Ivey, has not signed it into law yet, but it just passed the Senate last night. It's the most controversial because there are basically no exceptions. There's no exceptions for rape and incest. The Democratic senators tried to bring in that amendment last night, but was ultimately failed. It does make exceptions for extreme medical condition for the mother. But yeah, it's basically a challenge to, they want to directly challenge the Supreme Court's ruling on Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, and I just want you to give us an idea of what the environment was like last night as this was passed.
It was tense. So I was up in the gallery with the public. It was packed. There was tons of people there. Lots of protesters outside. Some dressed as handmaids from The Handmaid's Tale. A lot of people holding coat hangers in reference to previous ways women used to self-abort. It was tense after they finally, the Democrats filibustered for about 3 hours. Finally, it passed, and a lot of men I saw were shaking hands and fist bumping, and then outside there was some protesters still lingering. It was really emotional. The whole thing was so emotional. I know Senator Singleton broke down in tears at one point, talking about how he wished he could protect his daughters, but ultimately he couldn't.
Yeah, pretty tense it sounds like. So I want to also bring in Dr. Yashika Robinson with Physicians for Reproductive Health. Dr. Robinson, you're an OBGYN in Alabama, and you called this bill in a statement that you wrote a grave mistake that would have a disastrous effect on people in the state. Why do you say that?
Mainly because we understand that abortion is health care. Women choose abortion for several reasons, and this will limit the options that women have as far as treating an undesired or complicated pregnancy. It also limits physicians and ties their hands when they're making decisions that affect women's health care.
Yeah, and so again, one of the reasons it's one of the most restrictive bans to pass through the Senate is because it doesn't make any exemptions for rape or incest. What were you feeling when you saw that went through?
I was deeply disturbed. I think that Alabama made a very loud statement to women as far as how much they value us, how much they value our understanding of our health and our abilities as far as raising families. Women are often the cornerstone of families. They know what they can and cannot do. They know what is best. And I think that they can make those decisions along with their healthcare provider and how to treat pregnancies.
And finally, before we go, as Abby mentioned, the bill passed, but it actually isn't in effect yet. What do the people in Alabama need to know about what's next?
I think that the people in Alabama need to know that we are still here taking care of women. We're going to continue to fight as long as we can to make sure that access continues to be available. And like you said, the bill has not passed yet. So what we're doing right now is just focusing on continuing to take care of patients.
All right, Dr. Yashika Robinson and Abby Crane with AL.com. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it. And on to Washington, the State Department ordering the departure of non-emergency personnel from Iraq, saying they are at high risk for violence. This is coming amid heightened tensions with Iran. So I want to bring in Karen Travers at the White House, and we also have Louis Martinez at the Pentagon. Louis, I want to start with you. What prompted this warning?
Well, Kimberly, what we're hearing is that the State Department continues to hear the same intelligence stream that we heard from a week ago, that there might be the possibility of attacks in Iraq and Syria or the American ships at sea being provoked by Iran or by Iranian proxies, who in this case in Iraq would be Shiite militias. So the United States State Department taking preventive action here to try to act out based on this new information, which is essentially that they feel there is a threat to U.S. personnel at the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. Consulate in Erbil. So that's why they've ordered that all non-essential, non-emergency personnel leave the country. And they've also issued a warning to all U.S. citizens not to travel to Iraq because of concerns that they might be subject to kidnapping or encounter violence. So definitely new information that ratchets up the tensions in the area and kind of makes us wonder what new intelligence could there be beyond what we had already heard last week to lead to this new action, given that the previous information had already been out there for about a week or so.
Yeah, and Karen, I just want to ask you if you can give us an idea of what the White House is thinking. Are they all in agreement with these plans?
Well, right now, the president weighing in on this yesterday, Kimberly, our colleague Cecilia Vega asked if there was a plan to send 120,000 U.S. troops to the region as a way to combat this escalating threat from Iran. The president, on the one hand, threw cold water on these reports, saying that New York Times piece was fake news. But on the other hand, Kimberly, he also added fuel to the fire by saying, there are no plans for this right now, but it is something he absolutely would do. And the president even took it a little bit further by saying if he were to send troops to the region in a way to send a message or plan something aimed at Iran, he said he would send a heck of a lot more troops than 120,000. So conflicting a message from the president yesterday, but at the same time, a strong and stern message aimed at Iran.
All right, Louis Martinez and Karen Travers, thank you so much for the updates. And guys, as we reported yesterday, Democratic candidate number 22 has officially entered the 2020 race. It's Montana Governor Steve Bullock, and our Mary Alice Parks got exclusive access to him during the day of his announcement and joins us in Montana with more. Mary Alice, pretty cool there. What did you get to see?
Yes, Kimberly, there are 22 candidates. That's enough candidates to field an entire football team, both defense and offense. But Governor Bullock says that he has special red state appeal, and he's going to be reaching out to those voters who are particularly interested in this notion of electability. Expect him to repeat this line a lot. The same day that President Trump won in the state of Montana by 20 points, he won his second term. And he says that makes him really unique. But you're right, he was so generous. Him and his family let us into the governor's mansion just moments after he announced his presidential campaign. We got to hang out with him drinking his morning coffee. He was in his running shorts. His kids were there. It was a really family scene, and it was really special for us to get to be there. Take a look. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Mary Alice. Great to have you here.
Congratulations on
Thanks
your
so
morning.
much.
Thanks for having us. And so, how does it feel this morning?
Pretty amazing. I mean, both humbling, and I mean, you're in a house. I was raised 4 blocks from here, so I've made it 4 blocks in life. It's exciting as we finally kick this off and get it moving.
Lucky number 22?
22? I guess I can't argue with that, huh?
Is that intimidating? It's so crowded already.
It is, you know, but I think that I offer some things that the rest of the field doesn't. And even though there's a lot already in, I had a job to do. I had to, you know, my legislature just got over. I had to get Medicaid expansion reauthorized. We got some good progressive things done. So, you know, it's a crowded field, but there's plenty of room for a guy from Montana, because I do believe bring different things to this field.
What is that, though? What's your pitch, your 30-second pitch about being different?
30 seconds. Well, first, look, we've got to beat Donald Trump, but we've also got to get the economy working, the political system working for folks. The only person in the field that won in a Trump state. I got reelected in 2016 when he was on the ballot. He won by 20, I won by 4. 25 to 30% of my voters also voted for Donald Trump. I'm also, though, one of the few that actually bridge divides and got things done. So this is the signing of the FEC document that actually makes me an official candidate. There we go.
Are you nervous this morning?
No, not really. I mean...
No?
This is big. This is... And that's daunting, but I'm not nervous this morning. I'm excited this morning, really excited about being able to share what we have done and what we can do.
It feels casual around the table with you guys. Is this how you thought it would feel to announce the family was running for president?
I don't know. I think that signing was a little bit anticlimactic. But I think the whole announcing as a president candidate, it's more of a mindset than it is anything. It's a mindset that you want to go out there and change the world. You want to make it so everyone gets that fair shot. And I think he already has that mindset, and we're just developing that mindset, me and Cam, to push him over the finish line.
We'll have to, in the next month, really get the folks to join on board to the team. Voters aren't like, okay, we've got to make the first decision. They want to make the right decision. And I think that there's plenty of time to get out there.
Now, I don't know if you could hear there, but his daughter Caroline was playing some Taylor Swift when we walked in, feeling 22. Get it? Do you get it? It was pretty cute. They clearly, the entire family was on board. But you could tell he's a pretty affable guy. He's confident, said he was not nervous. He's had a lot of success here in Montana, ticking through some key Democratic legislative priorities. But still, what counts as progressive here in Big Sky country might be seen as significantly more moderate in other parts of the country. I think in this really crowded Democratic primary, he's going to get tough questions on issues of gun control, climate change, and others where we've seen the party move really far to the left.
Mary Alice, that was amazing. That was the definition of keeping it real. So cool. So thank you so much. All right, guys, and a new update on the Boeing 737 MAX jet plane crashes. The New York Times reporting that Boeing executives resisted a push from pilots to address issues with the planes after the crash in Indonesia. And of course, as we now know, the Ethiopian crash happened exactly after that meeting. So this comes as transportation officials are testifying on the Hill today. I want to go to David Curley at Reagan National Airport with more details. David?
Kimberly, that hearing on Capitol Hill is with the acting administrator of the FAA and the chairman of the NTSB. And right before this hearing, new tapes coming out from a meeting back in November after the first crash between American Airlines pilot union officials and Boeing engineers. The conversation was taped, and it shows a very heated conversation. Those pilots asking, why didn't we know about this new system on the MAX?
We flat out deserve to know what is on our airplanes.
I don't disagree.
The tapes reveal this morning the frustration bordering on anger of pilots from the American Airlines Pilots Union meeting in Dallas just weeks after this first 737 MAX crash, when the world learned that a new system could nose down the aircraft and may have contributed to the crash. This is the first time we've heard part of that heated conversation.
We're the last line of defense to be in that smoking hole, and we need the knowledge.
The tapes shared with media outlets, including the New York Times, quoting Mike Sinnott, vice president of Boeing, at this November meeting, saying, The worst thing that can ever happen is a tragedy like this. And the even worse thing would be another one. But there was a second crash less than 5 months later in Ethiopia. The Boeing engineers trying to explain back in November why they didn't announce that new system to pilots.
I don't know that understanding this system would have changed the outcome of this. You know, 1 million pilots are going to maybe fly this airplane, and maybe one's going to see this ever. So we try not to overload the crews with information that's unnecessary, so they actually know the information that we believe is important.
At the time, Boeing had issued a bulletin to airlines about this new system called MCAS.
Pilots taped the meeting because they were concerned about the safety of the 737 MAX 8, and they didn't feel like Boeing was sufficiently answering their questions or giving them as much information as they wanted.
Boeing told airlines it was working on a software fix for the system. The American pilots pushing for Boeing to issue a second bulletin calling for that software fix. But the upgrade was apparently not ready at the time.
We want to make sure we're fixing the right things.
Yeah, I get that.
And that's an important thing. We make sure we're fixing the right things. But we don't want to rush and do a crappy job fixing the right things. But we also don't want to fix the wrong things.
Boeing is not commenting on that taped conversation from back in November. We had known that the American airline pilots had had this discussion, a heated discussion with the Boeing engineers, and told them they were worried that they had not been told about the system. But this is the first time we've actually heard part of it. Boeing is only saying that they are working with regulators and customers around the world to get the 737 MAX back in the air. Kimberly?
Thank you, David. Pretty interesting there. And guys, we move on to Alaska and the aftermath of that mid-air collision. Officials are now raising the death toll to 6. So Will Carr's in Ketchikan, Alaska with more. Will?
Good morning, Kimberly. Hopes have been shattered in this community that prides itself on strength. The death toll jumped overnight to 6. We've learned that the victims range in age from 39 to 56, and that includes one of the pilots, Randy Sullivan. We spoke to some people in this area who knew Randy Sullivan. They say that he was a great guy. This community is now in mourning. The NTSB now has a GO team on the ground. They flew in from Washington, D.C. I'm told that overnight they actually flew to the crash site. They're looking at a number of factors that were involved in this crash, including weather, including the pilot's history, and including the 2 companies that were involved. Remember, there were 2 float planes that crossed paths and tragically collided in midair. We're now seeing pictures of some of the wreckage. One of those float planes is flipped upside down in the cold water. It is a chilling reminder of that tragic accident. The NTSB tells me they're going to take a hard look at both the companies involved, and they're hoping to release a preliminary report sometime in the next 2 weeks. Kimberly.
All right, Will, absolutely devastating. Thank you for the updates. And guys, let's get a check on the winter weather in spring with our Ginger Z. Ginger?
Kimberly, thank you. There's this storm we've got to turn our attention to because it is going to impact so much of this country going into the weekend. But let me first tell you what happened in Florida. Severe storms were trying to make their way through on the tail end of that same storm we all were dealing with. That's why it was so cold and nasty in the Northeast. But it was more than nasty. It was damaging in Florida here, Polk County. 6 people were inside that RV. Thankfully, they're all okay. So we're worried about that type of damage eventually here with the severe storms. But even the gusty winds coming on shore tonight, San Francisco Bay Area could end up with 2 to 4 inches of rain, up to 2 feet of snow in the Sierra. Timing-wise, not great for the evening commute. And then as far as Los Angeles goes, the morning commute could be messy because you just get a little bit of rain. You know how that ends up going in Southern California. As that storm then makes its way across the Rockies, you end up with 2 areas of enhanced risk already. These are days out, right? So we've been talking about the severe storms. Storm chasers are all ready to get there. It's western Oklahoma, down through Abilene and Midland, Odessa, up to North Platte, Nebraska, and even into South Dakota and Minnesota. Damaging wind, large hail, and then you get these supercells, the type of thunderstorm that rotates, and you can end up with tornadoes. So there's a large area that's going to have to watch for that. We'll fine-tune that as we get closer to Friday. But a quick look at what else is happening. A-Basin, Colorado, still skiing. They're going to get more snow with that same storm, so they say they'll stay open through June if it works out for them. I think skiers and snowboarders probably rejoicing. Also happening, though, in Killington, Vermont. So yes, as cold and rainy and nasty as it's been here and so many people so miserable, well, it's good for anybody who wanted a little extension of the season. until this happens, because we will warm up with this pattern shift. It slides all of that warm air this way. You know, we saw record highs in the Florida Keys. We're starting to pick up on some of that southern feel. 84 by the time we reach Sunday afternoon in Washington, D.C. Kimberly.
I like that little graphic that says summer-like. That's what we're waiting for, right? Okay, my friends, time to let you in on something epic. I admittedly was not a big fan or really paid attention to the K-pop mega group BTS, but that changed today because I was able to check them out ahead of their performance. For the first time, they're performing today, this morning on GMA, and it was incredible. But to be honest with you, the real stars of this show were the dedicated ride or die fans. So take a look.
See why they call it an army, because this is ride or die right here. 5 hours for this side, and I'm sure other people have waited much, much longer. Unbelievable. So what I want to do is talk to some of these people right here standing in front. They've been waiting for hours, as you know, but there's something about being right at the front of the stage that has to be incredible. The lights, the action, you're right there in it. Okay, I'm really excited for you guys because you're at the front of the whole situation. Okay, how are you feeling?
Excited.
What did you have to do to get right here in the front?
Camp for a week.
For a week?
Yeah.
Tell me you're lying.
Well, no.
You camped for a week?
Yes.
Okay, break it down, like logistics, everything.
Well, you know, we camped in a group. And a group of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
And,
are you from New York?
I'm from Brooklyn, and we're from Brooklyn. You know, we took shifts, and you know, we slept in a tent.
Where were you waiting?
Outside on the sidewalk.
To be the very first person in line.
Yes.
Right now, we're trending wow. Camping for a week. Do you hear that? You guys are trending. You're making this happen.
That's exciting. I'm happy for them.
I'm happy for you.
Moment.
You're happy for
yes.
BTS.
Yes.
That's so nice of you.
Yes.
All right, we got a good sign here up in front. Can you tell me what your sign says?
On my sign is Namjoon for president.
All right.
Yep.
How long did you wait to be right here in the town?
Almost a week.
Almost a week?
Yeah.
Were you going to school? Were you eating? What was happening?
Yeah, like we do shifts and stuff, and then like we kind of like someone like goes to the bathroom or work, and then like another person would stay, and then the person comes back, and then the second person like leaves, kind of.
So you got a whole system.
Yes.
Is it your first time?
No.
This isn't your first rodeo?
No.
Clearly, because you got a system.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yes. They're going crazy because BTS just appeared right there, waving to the crowd. Unbelievable.
All right, so amazing, right? They're incredible, but what I really learned from all of those fans out there is that it's way beyond the music. It's about their message. BTS is promoting the message of love yourself, speak yourself, and many of the fans said that's helped them get through some very tough times. So kudos to BTS for using their platform in such a good way. All right, guys, happiness and heartbreak at last night's NBA draft lottery. The New Orleans Pelicans winning the #1 pick in this year's NBA draft and will likely select Duke star Zion Williamson. New Orleans only had a 6% chance to win, so they're feeling good in the Big Easy. But on the other side, disappointment for the New York Knicks. They will pick 3rd despite finishing with the worst record in the league this year. Now, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith is a Knicks fan, so you know he has something to say about this. Stephen, how are you holding up today?
Thanks, Kimberly. You know, I had about 12 hours to reflect on things. And, I'm trying to be cool, trying to look at the silver lining. And then I remembered that I'm a Knicks fan. There's never a silver lining. Ever! It was supposed to be a silver lining when Stephon Marbury arrived. Didn't work. It was supposed to be a silver lining when Isaiah Thomas arrived. Didn't work. It was supposed to be a silver lining when Larry Brown arrived to save you as a coach. Didn't work. was supposed to be a silver lining when Carmelo Anthony arrived. Didn't work. And oh, by the way, we were supposed to get the first overall pick. Why? Because in 1985, when Dave DeBusschere, God rest his soul, was on the podium as an executive for the New York Knicks and an assistant coach. The luck of the draw of the balls went in the favor of the New York Knicks, and they got Patrick Ewing. We know that Zion wanted to come to New York. Did they kid now? Nah, didn't matter. He ends up in New Orleans. New Orleans. Really? They got beautiful restaurants. But are they New York? No! So I'm thinking we'll finally get something, but it didn't work out. And now, as a result, we're left to hope and pray that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving will ultimately come to New York as they've supposedly promised they will, instead of changing their mind because they recognize that a black cat is running around somewhere with a New York Knicks franchise. That is the life of a Knicks fan. That is my life as a Knicks fan. I guess I'll get over it. Eventually. How soon that is. Bye, Kimberly.
Steven, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. You guys, if you have time today, just send him a tweet, send him some love. We're wrapping our arms around you. It's going to be okay. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us today. If you're around, you can stick around for the briefing room at 3:30 p.m. and then you can check us out for World News Prime at 8 p.m. And if you want to stay updated on all of these headlines, you can go to abcnews.com or download the app. I'm Kimberly Brooks, and I'll see you tomorrow.